Hi, and welcome to this presentation on Joey Pigza, the fictional character from Joey Pigza Swallowed the Key, his attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and how this affects his executive skills. So first I will discuss Joey's signs of ADHD. I will do so by listing DSM-5 criteria for diagnosis and giving examples of Joey's behavior of this. So in relation to inattention, which is the first area of criteria for diagnosis, the first example would be does not seem to listen when spoken to directly. Throughout the novel, Joey regularly acknowledges that he is not listening. He is always aware of it. He says that he tunes people out. When the nurse is talking to him, he says he just chooses not to listen, and same with his mom. This relates to another symptom, which is easily distracted. An example of this is when the teacher is trying to explain rules to Joey, and all he can think about are her red fingernails. He doesn't hear a word she's saying, he says, but just that's all he can focus on. Another example is, or symptom, is things necessary. Loses things that are necessary. So an example of this is why he has his key on the string. So that he doesn't lose it. And this relates to another symptom of inattention, in that he makes careless mistakes. So this also relates to impulsivity, and that when Joey puts the key down his throat because he's distracted, he's not focused, and he ends up hurting himself. So now I will focus on the list of symptoms that are in relation to impulsivity. So the first symptom would be fidgets with or taps hands or feet, squirms in seat. Throughout the novel, Joey is regularly fidgeting. He's playing with his key, as I just mentioned. When he gets sent to a certain class, he will kick the desk repeatedly until he's hurt his foot, and they have to give him different shoes to wear, slippers, so that he's not disturbing everyone. And he does this until he falls asleep. That's how much he has to move. Another example would be him pulling his hair, which he does when he gets nervous and he needs to move his hand, so he pulls out chunks of his hair. Another symptom of impulsivity would be has difficulty engaging in quiet, leisurely activities. This is demonstrated throughout the novel as well, particularly in a scene where he says that he has to hold his breath if he's going to stay still. So he tries to sit in his seat for as long as possible, and he's constantly holding his breath, he says, or else he's going to move. Another example of impulsivity is always feeling like you're on the go, you're driven by a motor. Joey describes himself as feeling like a Coke bottle, like he's always ready to pop. And when he does, he has no control over what happens. So those are some of the main signs of ADHD, though there are many throughout the whole novel. So in regards to Joey's signs of dysregulation, I will show this video which explains dysregulation and how it affects ADHD.
ADHD amplifies emotions. Your child drops his ice cream and explodes into an hours-long temper tantrum. Or your spouse can't find the remote and is suddenly screaming at no one in particular. ADHD impairs the ability to regulate feelings, anger, anxiety, sadness, or other. The result? Overblown, extremely emotional reactions to small setbacks or challenges. Why? The brain's amygdala region handles emotional reaction and decision-making. A flood of anger or worry tells the amygdala to relay a message to the cerebral cortex. In turn, the cerebral cortex then inhibits emotional response so you can take a deep breath and think things through. In ADHD brains, this connection is weak. That means a person with ADHD may have an emotional reaction that seems out of sync with its cause, struggle to calm down once an emotion has taken hold, seem insensitive to or unaware of the emotions of others.
So I will pause the video there because that gives the most information, and I will give two examples of Joey's dysregulation. So the first one I will mention is when Joey accidentally cuts off Maria's tip of her nose. He knows he did something wrong, but he doesn't have an emotional reaction to it. He's upset because he knows he's in trouble, less so about Maria herself. This shows in that when he's leaving the school, he's looking at the blood and he's looking for pieces of the nose so that if he finds it, he can be seen as like the hero again and be seen in a better light. This is also demonstrated when he goes to Maria's house to talk to her, but instead is met by her father. And he says, matter of fact, I didn't bring any scissors. While most children who would say that it would be seen as being sarcastic or smart aleck, and that's how the parent sees it. He's just being matter of fact and saying that he didn't come here to cause any harm or anything, and he did not bring scissors, so he will not hurt her. So it shows that he lacks the empathy to understand how it would be understood by the father, and just lacks empathy towards the whole situation. Another example is when Joey is getting picked up to go to his new school. The bus driver asks if he has a foster kid, and he gets really nervous. It's all he can think about when he gets to his new school. That's all his whole attention is. He starts to panic about if he's going to get taken away, if his mom will get in trouble, and he can't focus on anything else. And he really needs to call his mom, and he becomes obsessed with it. And another child that this might happen to may understand that it was just a simple mistake of identity and that just let it go. But because of Joey's dysregulation, he is not able to do so. Okay, so in regards to the executive skills questionnaire, Joey had a number of strengths and weaknesses. So for strengths, I would say that Joey struggles to do what he is supposed to do a lot of the time. But he generally recognizes this, and he wants to do better. So he does have the skill of metacognition because he's able to step back, even though it is generally after the fact, and recognize his behavior and how it could be better. Another strength would be his stress tolerance, because although he doesn't enjoy unpredictability, he does thrive in fast-paced environments, and that can make him perform. So this also relates to his goal-directed persistence. Due to his constant desire to please people and be wanted by his family and his teachers, he always wants to do better for them. And so when there are goals that are set, he really feels great when he's able to achieve them. So in relation to some of his deficits, he definitely lacks sustained attention, which is demonstrated, as I mentioned, in his ADHD diagnosis. He lacks the skills that allow him to plan and prioritize his schoolwork and tasks within his house as well. He also struggles with response inhibition, which is demonstrated that he does things on impulse and doesn't think about things at the time, like when he runs away on the field trip and he hurts himself climbing the ladder. He didn't think about what he was doing in those situations. Okay, so introducing Joey to executive skills. As I mentioned, he's great with metacognition. So he's a very smart child, and he often knows when he's doing something wrong. He just doesn't have the impulse or control. So I think just being very honest and upfront about the areas which he excels in and the areas in which he needs improvement is the best way to do so. He also really likes to compare himself to other children. So I think the use of bibliotherapy by introducing executive skills through books with characters who may have certain struggles or strengths of executive skills will really help him to understand it. Another way would be to have reminder cards that he is fond of. So an example I had thought of is he really likes dogs, and he needs to pause before he does a lot of things. So to have a card that he would have with him glued to his desk with a dog with a stop sign so he could remember to pause. And as well as for the teacher to have one for if she sees him doing something, she can hold it up and it can be a reminder. So again, just things that are just very upfront, but definitely celebrate him as well as introducing his deficits. So in regards to intervention strategies, I kind of started going into that in the last slide. As you can see in this picture, there is a fidget step which could get put on his desk, which would really aid him in his fidgeting to be able to move his feet while he is doing his assignments. I think this would be a really helpful strategy for him. Another system I think would be really helpful in regards to his homework and his organization would be to create organization binders that he could take home every day with homework to do and homework that is done, and when everything, and have certain times for everything, so that when everything is done and his to do is empty and his done is full, he would get a sticker, and then that would go towards a reward at the end. As we saw throughout the book, and at the end, when he got the reward of the puppy, it was something he really strived to do. So, reward systems definitely work with him. Another thing I think would be really helpful for him would be to have um, schedules, so set times for things, both at home and in the classroom. So um, he would have a certain amount of time to do his homework in class, and then he would be able to get up and do something like he was doing previously, like help the teacher sharpen pencils or go for a walk around the classroom or things like that. And same with at home, if he has to clean his room, that he does cleaning for a full song, and then he can take a break and do something else, and then he can go back to that, so that he is aware of the time frames, and that can help him develop these skills. So that is all for my presentation today. Here are a list of the references I used, including the images for the presentation. Thank you.